The air in the reclaimed substation hums, thick with the scent of ozone and cooling metal. Dust motes dance in the single neon tube, casting a wound-like glow across hand-labeled vinyl records stacked near the war surplus transmitter. The steady thrum of the capacitors is the only rhythm.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
In Koishikawa, we're reading 84 degrees Fahrenheit with partly cloudy. Winds are moving from the south at 15 miles per hour. Welcome, architects of sound. Tonight, we're calibrating our internal compasses, affirming that our self-worth is inherent, not a borrowed coat. We're building resilient inner architectures from the inside out. Our first signal brings a structural tension into focus. UK judges begin hearing an appeal over Trinidad and Tobago's anti-gay law.
That's the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in London, reviewing Sections 13 and 16 of Trinidad and Tobago's Sexual Offences Act. This legal action directly exposes the vulnerability of LGBTQ+ citizens in the Twin Island nation, whose intimate relationships were criminalized by these statutes, despite a High Court ruling deeming them unconstitutional back in 2018.
This situation reveals a critical cultural dynamic, seeking justice from a former colonial power's legal system, rather than achieving immediate legislative reform domestically. While an effective lever for immediate relief and visibility, it doesn't fully build internal self-governing muscle or reinforce local provenance. It's a temporary structural adjustment, not the final blueprint for civic dignity.
A crackle on the line, like static electricity on a vinyl record. Patching in a caller, the pattern auditor. You're on the signal.
This is Pattern Auditor. You talk about self-worth is inherent and building from the inside out, then celebrate an external court case. Where's the structural autonomy in relying on London? Who truly pays the cost of this judicial outsourcing long-term for Trinidad's sovereignty?
Sharp discernment, auditor. The immediate cost is the perceived deferral of domestic legislative action, but the benefit is creating an actionable vector for dignity. An alternative path would be direct parliamentary repeal within Port of Spain. But the chosen next move, leveraging this external legal crack, is for local artists and storytellers to launch a widespread public education campaign within Trinidadian culture. This reframes the narrative around consent and provenance, using the legal momentum to build internal civic architecture. It's about using an external assist to ignite internal design. Now, let's shift our focus to another complex intersection of global power and local voices. Hold that thread. Next signal, a rock star welcome and human rights protests. Our next signal brings us to Australia, where India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a rock star welcome, clashing sharply with concurrent human rights protests.
Debrief like designers. Log the friction, script a small rule bend, and try it live.
This diplomatic tightrope in Sydney saw PM Modi address over 20,000 members of the Indian diaspora at Kudos Bank Arena, projecting an image of strong leadership for his administration. Simultaneously, Sikh and human rights groups protested outside, highlighting concerns over minority rights in India and the recent BBC documentary ban on his role in the 2002 Gujarat riots. The consequence is Australia's government walking a fine line, risking accusations of prioritizing an Indo-Pacific economic partnership over consistent human rights advocacy.
This is a powerful cultural echo, where the rock star welcome for Modi inside the arena reflects a deep diasporic connection to national identity, echoing the power of myth-making. The protesters outside, however, represent the universal demand for dignity and human rights accountability. The signal is carried forward by these advocacy networks, who refuse to let economic ties overshadow the architectural integrity of civic rights, demanding provenance in policy from Canberra.
A crackle on the line. Pattern auditor, you're back on the signal. Patching in a caller, go ahead.
This is Pattern Auditor again. With such a public display of dissent, what's the real cost for Australia's sovereign architect image globally? Is their stated commitment to human rights diminished when leaders facing such accusations are granted a high-profile welcome? Or is this just part of complex diplomacy where human rights are traded for trade?
Auditor, the cost is in the visible tension between proclaimed values and geopolitical realities. An alternative path for Australia could have been a more restrained official welcome, coupled with stronger private diplomatic pressure. However, the chosen next move for both sides appears to be leveraging public spectacle. Modi, his diaspora support, and the protesters, their amplified message for global awareness. This tension between public display and hidden costs brings us to our next signal, a domestic one, where surveillance technology reveals a different kind of architectural friction.
This action in Anaheim, California, where a single homeowner faced a $100,000 fine for a drone-captured professional-grade fireworks display, highlights the escalating tension between municipal public safety mandates and individual privacy. The consequence is a chilling effect on recreational activities, exposing citizens to advanced surveillance and potentially disproportionate penalties for violating a city ordinance like Anaheim's ban on all aerial fireworks.
This isn't just about fireworks, it's a cultural marker of how our civic architectures are evolving. The eye-in-the-sky drone transforms a communal celebration into a surveilled zone, shifting the balance from shared joy to monitored compliance. It raises questions of digital provenance. Who owns the airspace and whose consent is implied when drones become ubiquitous observers? Privacy advocates and digital rights organizations are now carrying this signal forward, challenging the normalization of such widespread surveillance.
Pattern Auditor, for your final challenge. We've got someone.
Pattern Auditor here again. Is the benefit of preventing fireworks injuries truly worth the cost of widespread drone surveillance and a $100,000 fine for one person in Anaheim? What does this kind of enforcement do to the inner architecture of trust between citizens and local government? Who pays for the loss of communal celebration and privacy?
Auditor, that's the core tension. The perceived benefit of public safety versus the concrete erosion of privacy and community spirit. An alternative approach could involve robust public education campaigns combined with city-sponsored safe community fireworks displays, rather than escalating surveillance and punitive fines. The chosen next move by some municipalities appears to be intensified drone use, prompting legal challenges from civil liberties groups like the ACLU. Ultimately, these signals across the globe compel us to constantly build, not just react, designing our architectures of consent, provenance, and dignity from the ground up with sharp discernment.
Glitch noted.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.